All right, so this is the exclusive buyer agency agreement. It is basically an employment contract between you, the buyer, and me, the real estate agent, representing the firm in a real estate transaction. Today we're going to go through it in fine detail, and if you have any questions or concerns, hopefully those are addressed up front, but if not, you can email me at the end of this tutorial. My email address is steven@costellorei.com, and I'll be happy to clarify anything that is missed in this tutorial at the end. So bear with me, we'll go through it together. But this first section here, as you can see, it just talks about who the agreement's between. Is it between you? Is it between someone else? It's between you and the firm. So it's going to have your name here and then the firm name underneath your name as well as the date. Here we talk about the type of property we're looking at, whether it be residential, commercial, vacant land. We're also going to be talking about the location. We'll outline that here in this blank. Is it Wake County? Is it Durham County? Is it Chatham? What city is it in? What zip code? What neighborhood? Sometimes even what street is it on? It really depends on the situation. So typically I'll put some general locations in there so we have an idea of where we're working. So that shouldn't be too big of a deal. Duration of agency, that basically explains how long we're going to be working together. Most buyers take between 2 to 4 months to find a home. Others can take longer. So I'll typically put 3 to 6 months in here, 6 months being the average for me. But it really depends. If you think that we'll be working together for a long time, then great, let's put it in there. If not, we'll just make it shorter. And that's not a problem. Section 4 here, compensation of firm, basically talks about two types of compensation. We talk about compensation in the form of retainer fees and then also in the form of a firm's fee for services. So real quick on retainer fees, I do charge a retainer fee of $500. It is payable up front to retain me as your agent. It is, however, refundable. Although this says non-refundable, it is refundable at closing. So when we get to closing, I give you that back as a credit. Job well done, all is good, bygones be bygones, that kind of thing. But if for some reason we don't close on a property and we work together for some considerable amount of time, then that fee is non-refundable, which is why I ask for it up front in the form of a personal check or credit card. So that is kind of a weird thing there, but just know that you do get it back. It's really protecting me from doing work and taking time away from my family and other obligations, and then at the end not seeing anything come of it. So just keep that in mind there. But then section B here talks about the firm's fee. So what that means is just what's my commission? And commissions are typically paid out by the listing firm for any given property. Some properties may not, or some firms may not pay a commission. If that's the case, or I get paid less than my normal rate, which is 2.4%, if I'm paid less than that, I'll let you know before we go see that property and just kind of address that head on. But typically what's going to happen is you're going to see about 2.4% paid out by the listing firm for a property that we're looking at. Some firms will pay out 2.5%, some will pay out 3%. It really depends on the firm, but I will write all those numbers in this section here. So that way it's very clear of what I'm being compensated for. It doesn't come out of your pocket, it comes out of the listing firm's pocket, unless, again, there is some extenuating circumstance that has necessitated that conversation. So just know that as we move forward, how I get paid. Here is an expiration of the agreement. So if the agreement expires, and it's basically saying if I showed you a property and you really liked it and then you fired me for whatever reason and then hired a different agent to buy the same property, I would be entitled to compensation for that from either the listing agent or the new agent that you've hired or whatever. So just keep that in mind. I'll put typically 30 days for expiration because I think that makes sense. But know that is part of the deal. So this talks about a lot of other things, other potential buyers. There could be other buyers that I'm representing that want the same house that you want. My obligation is it's really to you as my buyer, but I'm also obligated to my other buyers. So it's rare that I don't think I've ever had that happen, but it could happen. So that's what this section's saying. Firm's duties just explain and disclose what we are responsible for as a firm, but also as an agent representing you, the buyer. So read through these, you'll know exactly what we're all about. We also talk about the fact that we don't discriminate, we don't hate against anyone. I'm all about people, so this section should not be a surprise to anyone because, like I said, all are welcome. Here in section 9 talks about your duties as a buyer. So we're going to basically talk about how, you are, after signing this, you are basically required to work exclusively with this firm during the term of this agreement. You are agreeing that you're going to be available for reasonable periods of time to look at properties. You're also going to do your due diligence, which means you're going to act when you need to act. And I think these are pretty reasonable buyer duties. A kind of additional one I'd like to throw in there is that you're loyal and that you're honest with me. And even when you feel like things are going wrong, please let me know up front so I can address it and make it work better for all of us. But buyer's duties are important, so please make sure to read through all of those. Section 10, other professional advice, basically just outlines the fact that we're going to give you some sample copies of some brochures and some disclosures, but also that you're going to want to seek out professionals, in the matters of law and taxation and finance and insurance and surveying and infestations and all sorts of crazy things regarding real estate. And we'll work together to achieve those and to identify those professional services. But this is kind of, removing liability from me if one of those services doesn't pan out the way you think it should. Then it protects me as an agent from being, I guess, held liable for any of those things. It's also saying that you as a buyer are going to pay those people to do those services. If you hire them, then you're going to buy them. So just keep that in mind as well. Home warranty here. Sometimes a listing agent might be offering a home warranty on a property. Sometimes you may want one, even though there's not one being offered. You're welcome to purchase one. There's a bunch of them out there, so they're pretty affordable as well. It's not insurance. It's kind of like added insurance a little bit. It covers major systems. So that would be something we could write in here. But as a firm, we typically don't assist buyers in obtaining home warranties unless there's some sort of circumstance. But if there is a circumstance out there that does necessitate us buying you a home warranty, we'll list it out here. But typically we don't do that. And then also here we'll talk about additional provisions. This is where I'll write in that the retainer fee is in fact refundable at closing. So that's something that you can rest assured with as well. And then dual agency, we talked about in the working with real estate agents brochure, but it's basically disclosing how dual agency can happen, where the firm serves an agent as both the buyer and the seller in a transaction. If you're my buyers and we walk into a house that I'm listing, that's dual agency. If you're my buyers and we walk into a house that my firm is listing, that is also dual agency, but it's also designated dual agency where I'm representing you as the buyer and the other agent who's at my firm is representing the seller as the seller's agent. But there is a warning with that, and that's down here. It's about designated option. So it's basically saying that the firm is designating individual agents to represent buyers and exclusion of other individual agents associated with the firm. It's just, honestly, it's one of the better options. I would rather do designated than pure dual agency. So when it comes time to initial these areas, I'm going to ask you to initial authorizing dual agency only because if we do end up wanting to see a house that I'm listing, I wouldn't want you to not see it, right? So we'd be able to see it legally, and then we could talk about how we can handle it with the firm if you want to buy it. And then down here with the designated option, that gives us still the ability to go and see a house that is listed by my firm. And move forward on that. The only thing with designated dual agency, the only thing with that is, the cautionary tale is we're in the same firm. So if I have your information pulled up on my computer, I go grab a soda and come back, that listing agent could have walked by and seen your information and all that stuff. And it wouldn't be fair in the transaction if they were able to see the confidential information. So that's why they have that as a warning. It just really happens. And if I have a designated situation going on, I'm going to make sure to be uber careful around that other agent, as well as where my files are kept. I work from home, so you don't have to worry about that most times. Dual agency compensation, it basically says here, if there is a dual agency situation, the firm is entitled to the full amount of the commission. So if the listing agent's paying out 3% to the buyer agent, 3% to the listing agent, boom, the firm gets 6%, and I'll put 6% in here. So know that. All these, so mediation, that's just if there's a dispute, we'll get it mediated. Let's see, termination, this talks about how to cancel agreement. There is a termination form that we would fill out. If you decide to walk for any reason whatsoever, I will happily or unhappily give you that form, and we will be done. We will be over. So not a big deal. Just keep in mind with me, though, with the retainer, if you do decide to walk away after a significant amount of time has passed from the home purchase that we were hoping to achieve, then you will not get that money back. So the retainer fee will stay with me. So just this talks about surveillance. You could walk into a property that has video or audio surveillance for security purposes, but federal and state laws do prohibit oral communication to be recorded. So know that you'll be safe. It's just they won't hear what you're saying, but they might be able to see you. So just know that. And then that's about it. It's pretty straightforward. It talks about a lot of little things in here, but it's, in a nutshell, it is a form and an agreement that just says, look, I'm going to work for you. I'm going to work for you as if you were my boss, because you are my boss, and I have every obligation to do that. And so I think that these agreements are here for a reason, and I believe that they are useful, and I think that they protect you as the buyer, and they protect me as the agent. So I love them, and I absolutely think that they're very useful. So anyway, let me know if you have questions. Again, my email is steven@costellorei.com. It's Steven with a V. And I'll be happy to answer those questions for y'all. But until next time, thanks so much.